Hey everybody, it's Romania Black, and we are on episode 2 of the case study of Vanitas. The first episode was quite intriguing. I'm kind of all about it, and I think the comments that I received from Patreon, because episode 1 has dropped on Patreon now, I think they kind of speak to exactly the vibe that I was seeing going into episode 1, and that was Peach over on Patreon, I think might have said it best, saying that this series feels like a mixture of Bungo Stray Dogs and Moriarty the Patriot, right? It feels like a mixture of that, and if you've not seen those two shows, you should, because they're amazing, and I'm all for this being a mixture of the two of them. So Peach, that was a great comment, but I really enjoyed the last episode. Vanitas seems like this weird, chaotic Sherlock-type character that I'm all about. Noe seems very interesting, which someone on Patreon pointed out that Noe is French for Noah, which ties to the whole Child of the Ark analogy that Vanitas had said. And then Woosh and Sweebian noted that Vanitas' VA is the same VA as Tanjiro from Demon Slayer. What? I have not had time yet to watch season 3 of Demon Slayer. I just don't have time in my schedule right now, but it is on my to get to list at some point. So that seems like a departure from Tanjiro's character, because Tanjiro in that series is the most sweetest of cinnamon buns, and Vanitas seems to have a little bit more mischievousness than that. And then Noe's voice actor is the same voice actor as Kaido from Sarune. That's where I'm hearing that voice. And Kageyama from Haikyuu. So I'm like, Kageyama from Haikyuu, though, is often, for me, hard to distinguish because his voice is so like monotone and often devoid of emotion, and that's by design, whereas Kaido is very emotional. So interesting. I'm seeing a slight ship already. Woosh and Sweebian had also shared in the Discord a picture of Myrrh, which is Noe's cat, and I can't believe I just noticed it after the reaction and discussion, but Noe, his cat Myrrh, has a purple eye and a blue eye, and Vanitas is purple, and Vanitas is blue, and Noe is purple. So the cat is automatically shipping already, right? And then finally, Woosh and Sweebian noted that Vanitas is to Bones what Gojo is to Mappa. They really like animating them. I was like, good! I'm excited. That makes me excited and hyped up to see what beautiful animation Bones is going to cook up, because this is a Bones release. All right. I'm here for it. I'm all excited about this. This series seems, I'm a big fan of Sherlockian mysteries, so this being a mixture of that and Bungo Stray Dogs with vampires, yeah. What person raised in the early aughts didn't like vampires? What person raised in the 80s and 90s didn't like vampires? I mean, there's just something really cool about the idea of immortality and all the things you can do with that as a narrative trope, especially in terms of romance and especially in terms of mystery and intrigue. So, and the fact that Vanitas is supposedly human, but this power has been transferred from one Vanitas to the other, has a very Doctor Who-like quality to it, which I'm all about. So yeah, there's like mystery set up from the beginning when Noe says he has to be the one to kill Vanitas with his own 2 hands. Is that going to be a fake out? Is it going to be trauma and angst? We as the audience don't know yet. We'll just have to wait and see. But I'm really excited about it, so I hope you all are too. Before we start, real quick, I want to give a special shout out over to our philanthropy tier over on Patreon. These patrons support me not only by getting on the Discord, voting for shows, getting things a week early, but also by donating a little bit of extra money to help me pay for the manga, for the anime, for the streaming services, for the host sites, all of that to help me do the things that I love to do and give you all content on this channel. So a special shout out to Edgar, to Dana, to Anime Annie, to Nameless Monster, to Tyrone, to Kinney, to Arjo, to Shimoyama, to Be Happy, to Translucent Mint, as well as Eric and Sunspots. Thank you all so much. I greatly appreciate your support, and I can't thank you enough. All of my love. But yeah, I said I was going to wear blue, and then I thought, what if I differentiate it? What if I rotate each weekend out? Because technically, our 2 main protagonists so far seem to be Noe and Vanitas. So this seems like I wore this for work. I had like a banquet I had to go to tonight. And so this looks very Noe. It looks very French and Parisian, perhaps. Everyone from Paris is like, you're full of dog doo-doo. And I'm like, I am. So I thought it would be fitting. We'll just rotate it each week. We'll have 1 week as Vanitas, 1 week as Noe, and we'll just do that. we'll just do it till the end of the series. But I'm excited, y'all. I hope y'all are too. So we're not going to waste any more time. We're going to dive into episode 2 of the case study of Vanitas and see what we get. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. I think what I'm going to like most about this series is the chibis. I love Noe when he's just like doing this. Like, I do speech coaching and like we call, like, when you do these gestures, we call them penguin hands. And so I'm just like looking at him and his penguin hand gestures like, yes, we should do this. It's so freaking cute. It reminds me of Ida from My Hero Academia. Yes, do this here. It's so freaking cute. But oh my gosh. So we're going to do that kind of ship with this show, right? We're going to do that kind of ship. I feel like there's different kinds of unintentional, subtextual, but actually contextual shipping, especially with BL. And I feel like you either have two characters that are like madly in love, but don't realize they're madly in love, or realize it and are gung-ho 100% about it. You've got that type of ship. That's the most rare, I feel, is that the ship that's like all over each other 24/7. But they do exist. You have that ship. Then you have the ship of the characters that like are totally against each other, hate one another. They don't want to admit that they're actually all entirely about one another. I think of like Chuya and Dazai from Bungo Stray Dogs, where they're like, oh, we don't possibly finish each other's sandwiches. No, we don't like each other, but they secretly love each other. I feel like Moriarty and Sherlock from Moriarty the Patriot are kind of like the first set where they actually do quite love each other, and they're very open about it, but they're also kind of like subtextually oblivious, and everybody else around them is like, get a room. And then you have Vanitas and Noi, like kind of, you know, in one, it's so funny because both of them at any given time will kind of be fangirling over the other, but then when they try to call it out to each other, the other person will deny it. So like Noi will be sitting there like fangirling about something Vanitas does, and then Vanitas like, oh, do you like me? And he's like, oh no, not at all, I hate you. And then Vanitas will be like doing something that's like, oh Noi, and he's like, what, are we like best friends? He's like, no. And so although I think Vanitas would be much more receptive of Noi publicly than Noi would be of Vanitas, but Noi is not a tsundere, but he kind of gives off like a tinge of it, but it's kind of weird. It's not like it. I like their vibe. I like their dynamic of, it's a very will they won't they dynamic, and we're all sitting here like, please do. Like, that's just, I love it. I love it so far. It's very, very cute. But Noi has my heart. I know that Vanitas is like a fan favorite. I can already assume that from the Discord and the mountains of Vanitas pictures that have been shared already, like in 1 week. But I personally like Noi, but purple's my favorite color, so maybe I'm drawn to him for that reason. He just seems like, it's so funny, he just seems like the ne'er-do-well, like the do-well kid that's thrust into this world of chaos. And he's got a good heart, and he's trying to do good, and things are just complicated, right? But what an interesting episode. So we start out with the whittling. So, okay, I wanted to bring up the world building here. Again, right where Kun has joined us, because this world has lots of things. This is a very exposition-driven show, but I'm okay with it because we need to know these things. Like, there's lots of, I like that there's not like a subtitle being like Barrier World, Vampire Land, Red Moon Land. It expects you to kind of figure it out as you go. But I do appreciate that for a show that clearly has a lot of exposition to get through, they don't bombard you with it, and they don't take like a dump truck and dump it all at once, but they do expect you to be paying attention and kind of putting 2 and 2 together. And there are some things they have to explain to you, or it's not going to make sense. So we've kind of established that there is a special barrier, and there is like, it almost feels like the red moon, which to us seems like night, is a vampire's day, right? And then the blue moon, which the other vampires treat like the sun and not good, is something that Noi is okay with. Okay? So we have that. It's still rather interesting that they can be in broad daylight with the humans and not, burst into flames or melt or do whatever. But I'm sure we'll find out more about that. They've made the establishment that the vampires, a lot of them went back to the barrier and some chose to remain with the humans. So then they talk about the herd of a curse bearer. So we have this idea, this concept of a curse bearer. And it is a vampire who has had their name, or basically their soul, corrupted. They're corrupted and they will turn into a monster unless saved. I do like that we kind of went back to what we've been talking about with the first episode, because I was like, oh, this is so weird. The curse of the blue moon is supposed to destroy vampires. The grimoire is supposed to destroy vampires, but Vanitas is using it to save them. How does that work? And we find out that no, technically, the book can both save or curse vampires. It just depends on who's using it and how they use it. So I like that. I like that kind of little thing there. And they're all playing the ball. A vampire who suddenly loses their mind and goes berserk is a curse bearer. And then as he's whittling, my grandfather told me about them. And he's like, a curse? Whose curse? And he's like, well, the vampire of the blue moons, obviously. And he cuts his hand on that. And he's like, are you okay? And then I like that he goes to like lick the blood and everything. And they're all kind of like, uh-huh. And so I don't know who the black-haired vampire is. Obviously, it's somebody that Noe really liked. And it seems like they ended up dying. So, or did they? We don't know. But they kind of resemble Vanitas a wee bit. So maybe Noe has a type. Maybe Noe likes kind of tall, dark, handsome, kind of slightly chaotic neutral characters. Even with a curse bearer here before you, are you able to see the blue moon as something beautiful? So even back then, that vampire knew they were a curse bearer. And they're like, can you really find the blue moon beautiful when it's made me like into this horrible soon-to-be monster? Interesting. And then we see the rain droplets come from the blue moon like it's crying. Interesting. So I like the visuals so far. I like the visuals that we're getting from this episode. It's very intriguing. And then we have the OP that is just like pure shipping. It's just pure shipping fodder. It's literally Noe being excited by everything around him. And Vanitas is just like, just like, okay. Like, I don't see what the big deal is. Like the whole time. And then they had the Fibonacci spiral. That's what made me think of Moriarty the Patriot. And then the Grand Cafe Cupinci. And then, yeah, Noe's just going completely berserk and having a great day. And Vanitas is like, what are you finding so mysterious and interesting? And then the light of the blue moon shining on Noe. Interesting. Curious. So they get taken to prison after the whole thing with Amelia. It took me a second to remember who Amelia was. And it's like, oh, she was the girl vampire. There we go. And so the book and everything's been taken away from them. And I like that Vanitas is just like, well, fine question, my dear Noe. How did we get behind bars? And he's like, oh, you were poisoned by the eglantine due to your absurd antics. And then you face planted by the roadside and slept like a baby for nearly half a day. And he's like, that is not what I asked for. So no, I'm not satisfied with this at all. He's like, you were the one who stole aboard the airship. I just happened to be there. So why am I? Is it guilt by association? And so, yeah, he's like, where's your book? He's like, oh, they took it. So apparently the book isn't just something that anybody can pick up and become Vanitas. So that is good to know. So we find out that the book of Vanitas apparently has to be given to you. It is not something, it's either something that vampires cannot open, because none of the vampires that have had it have been able to open it, and Vanitas is a human, or it is something that must be given from one Vanitas to the next. Maybe, but we know that not anybody can just open it and use it, which is good, because I was wondering about that, like, what would stop somebody from stealing the book? And that's what Vanitas is like, were you trying to steal my book? Is that why you're so concerned about it? And he says, my master requested I assess its true nature. So, somewhere, Noe's master, who we assume is is the vampire with the sneaky grin, right? Noi's master wanted him to assess its true nature. Figure out what it really is. Because that's the thing. Does it corrupt or does it save? How does it work? What must one do to get the power of Vanitas? So that's rather interesting. My curious thought, and I obviously don't want answers or spoilers or hints or clues or anything like that, but my thought is, can vampires become Vanitas, or does it have to be a human that gains those powers? Can vampires ever inherit it, or does it have to be a human being inherit it? We don't know such things. Maybe we will learn them. But yeah, and so Noi's like, that's all my master wanted. And Vanitas is like, assess, you say? That's a really vague word. Like, doesn't mean take or steal. Just means to learn about it. What would we do with that information? And I like that Noi didn't really even question it. He was like, well, my master told me. So what does his teacher want him to do? That's a rather good question. And then Vanitas is like, hold on a second. He's like, if you seek the book of Vanitas, then you should join me. So he's like, I love that Vanitas' whole goal. Vanitas wants Noi to be his partner. I wonder if the whole thing about Noi having to kill Vanitas at the end, I wonder if vampires can become the vampire Vanitas, because Vanitas started out supposedly originally as a vampire. I wonder if the whole killing Vanitas here is that by the end, like Vanitas wants Noi to join him as his partner, and by the end of the series, Vanitas is going to be like, okay, circumstance, whatever ends up happening, he's like, you're going to have to kill me and become the new Vanitas because you like the blue moon, you think it's beautiful, you're perfectly fit to be my protege and my successor. That's how it's going to end up happening. I don't know. I could be wrong. But that's an interesting theory that maybe is he grooming Noi to be his replacement? We don't know. And I love that he just gets up in Noi's space. He's like, why do you keep refusing to help? And I like that that's a good question. Why does Noi seem to refuse to help him? Because on first glance, you would think Noi, who's always been fascinated by the Book of Vanitas, why wouldn't he want to help Vanitas? This is kind of what he's always wanted, right? Since he was a kid. And then he's like, geez. I love that Vanitas doesn't need a scritchy bag and badger face. He's like, geez, what's the deal? And then he's like, why don't I want to follow him? And it's just like the room, like it's very Bungo Stray Dogs. The room starts to spin. He's like, what's the reason? And then what I like is like the first two images of Vanitas he sees are him looking incredibly sexy. And I'm like, oh, that's why. Oh, okay. So that's how it is. And then he sees Vanitas being all goofy and everything. But mostly they're of him being handsome. And he's like, he sees him being chaotic and handsome. And he's like, now I understand. I simply don't like you that much. I'm like, that's the biggest crock of shit I've ever heard in my life. I'm calling BS. He's like, he sees like all these sexy images of Vanitas in his brain. He's like, oh, it's because I must not like him. Are you freaking kidding me? Come on now. Come on. And Vanitas being like, what? He's just like, what are you talking about? Like his little chibi, the chibi versions of them are so adorable. I could look at it all day. He's like, what am I going to do? He's like, for my teacher's sake, I guess I should go with you. I'm like, Noi, come on. Give him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. Sure, he's chaotic, but come on. But meekly accepting whatever someone I dislike says. I'm like, why do you dislike him so much? It's bad for my mental well-being. Hashtag mental health awareness. Noi is right to bring up that we shouldn't do things that harm our mental health. Like being around people we may find physically attractive. And then he's like, so what now? He's like, what are you talking about? What are we going to do? And so that's when they're let out of the prison and they are sent to go see the Count, right? So we get some world building. In this. That vampires came to an arrangement with the humans. And it says, come along, I'll show you the way. And he's like, oh yeah, this is my first time in Paris. And it's the city of flowers. I love that we have the primary colors where you have the red eyes of the red moon vampire, you have the blue moon vampire, and the yellow, it showed the one vampire in the flashback with the long black hair having yellow eyes, which I thought meant we're a curse bearer. But then again, Amelia didn't have those eyes either. So was he a brochure? Was he meant to be a brochure? Is that how he got cursed? Because he betrayed the other vampires? We don't know. But the brochure that we see also has yellow eyes. So again, I love the flowers are primary colors, and we've had them with the vampires and Vanitas so far. And bless his heart, Noe is so enraptured by the romance and the City of Flowers. You know what Noe reminds me of? Noe reminds me of Christian from Moulin Rouge. He is the idealistic poet that comes to Paris in search of true love. That's kind of the vibe he gives off in the scene with the flowers, right? And Vanitas is Satine. The blue, the sparkling diamond. Oh my God, Satine could be like the sparkling diamond from Moulin Rouge. Vanitas could be with the grimoire. I smell a comparison. What does that make Dante? Not Zidler, even though they have the red hair. No, Dante is more like, the one that sings Roxanne. Okay, now, Noe loses some points because Noe simultaneously loses and gains points because he first finds a clown, which clowns are scary. I don't like clowns. But he gains points because he adorably crouches down like the little kids to watch him and holds his legs in his hands, which is really cute. So I take away points, but then I give them right back. So the Count has sent them an invitation to come and get our things, but the police took those things when we left the airship. I love the Vanitas is like, we didn't come here to see clowns. Come on. God, that's so funny. That's so funny. I love it. And he's drags him away. Why are you so exhausted, Vanitas? He's like, you're trying to herd a cat. You own a cat and you're just like Myrrh. You're just trying to herd cats so you don't wander off. So then they go to the Gallery of Valentine. The Gallery Valentine or Valentine, where they will see the Count. So they say that after the battle with humans, apparently vampires lost somehow. The vampires, let me see here. They lost the battle of the humans, and some vanished back to the barrier, which is where Noe is from. So he clearly was his family was one of the ones that escaped, right? But others chose to live with the humans. There are still many that continue to live there. And so there has to be somebody to keep balance between humans and vampires. And that would be this Count, right? Lord of Altus, Count Olaf. And I like that immediately. It's like Black Butler mixed with Seraph of the End. You have these two vampires that come in. One has the Malin costume. The other one looks like a Seraph of the End villain. They both have the sharp nails, which is funny because that's what Vanitas has on his hand, even though he's not supposedly a vampire. And they tell him not to go, not to come any further. And then of course Olaf lets them in because he looks quite scary. He has all the waffly scars on his face and has the rings. He looks like he's been through a lot. But they got Myrrh. I love how Noe is so happy. Myrrh, I'm so relieved you're safe. And then Myrrh's like, bitch, you left me on a boat. A flying boat at that. And of course, Vanitas is like, wow, thanks for giving us back our possessions. The obvious thing missing is the one thing I wanted back. So let's get right to the point. I want Amelia Ruth, and I want the Book of Vanitas. And they're like, Vanitas, Mademoiselle, Amelia is fine now. And they're like, curse bearers cannot be allowed to live. So we're going to eliminate her. So there's the idea that even vampires, will eliminate curse bearers. There's that idea there, which is rather interesting, right? That they're just like, nope, we got to get rid of them. It's the way this works. And so they point out that the book, who would believe it would save vampires? At first they say there's no such thing as a cursed grimoire. And Vanitas is like, well, that's funny you say that as you're not giving it back to me. Mm-hmm. So he kind of calls him out and says that you just don't know how to use it. Otherwise, you would have given it back. And he's like, don't you want me to teach you how to use it? And he's like, no. And so he says, I summoned you, the man who assumed the name of Vanitas. So there's this idea of assuming, like he is not the real Vanitas. He's like, you're not the real Slim Shady. There's only one Slim Shady, and apparently they've been dead for many hundreds of years, probably. And so they can't quite believe that Vanitas is trying to save them using the grimoire. And he's like, well, Amelia regained her sanity. And they're like, Boros must behead curse bearers as soon as they're found. So the ones that eliminate them are the Boros, right? And originally it's established the Boros were vampires who betrayed and joined the humans. We got two names of creatures looking after Vanitas at the beginning. We got Boros, and we also got, there was a Chasseurs, maybe, I think was the other one. So Chasseurs work for the church, and Boros are like bounty hunters that were once vampires that are now aligned. Well, I guess they are still vampires that are aligned with the humans. Interesting. And Noi just kind of has like a big helicopter flashback about Mina to be executed. So Amelia is called, Mina. Oh, we go back to Mina was the vampire in the past. And that one vampire is still whittling like the steak. Is it whittling like a steak to kill itself? Oh. So in Noi's past, get this right. In Noi's past, there was Mina, who was a curse bearer that was executed, or to be executed. And Noi's like, I don't understand. And it's because she's a curse bearer. They're beheaded by a burrow. That's the rule. And so it shows them trying to get her out of there. We have to go save her. Can you lift the curse of the blue moon? Of course you can't. I want to go back to that. What was that scene? And we see her sitting there, and then there's Noi. Of course you can't. She's beyond all help now, Noi. Oh. And he says, hear me, human. Vampires whose names have been defiled can never return to their former state. Supposedly, but Vanitas seems to think otherwise. And then we see the black-haired one there. He's like, what's wrong with you, senile old coots bound by antiquated traditions? Like, think outside the box. And everything gets crazy and chaotic in this moment. And Vanitas is kind of like just thriving in it. And he's like, there's nothing you can do. And Noi gets fed up. So yes, Noi has a chip on his shoulder about losing friends in the past who are curse bearers and doesn't want any other vampires to die necessarily. So he is all about making sure. I feel like that's going to be the impetus he has to help Vanitas, is that he doesn't want to see any more vampires die. So he's going to be like, fine, I'll help you because we both have a common goal, maybe. Which is great. And then he grabs the Book of Vanitas, which seems like such a thing, right? Like, so if Vanitas is in fact, like, setting Noi up to be his successor, it's funny that Noi grabs the Book of Vanitas to give back to Vanitas. Interesting indeed. And he's like, the vampire attacks are happening all throughout Paris. What if we capture the vampire that's causing attacks, bring them back here? Vanitas can use his little mumbo jumbo magic and show you that the book can in fact revert them to their previous state. Will that suffice? And the Count seems okay with this, but he tells them that they have one day. I'm like, one day? They have 24 hours to go catch a serial killer? That ain't fair. You should have at least gave him a couple, give him a weekend. You know, we shall wait but one day. Very Victorian. And so then they start to hurry. And I like that Noi, like, he takes the book, and then, of course, Vanitas is like, at last you wish to help me. And he's like, no, I'm just trying to save Amelia. He's like, you're helping me. Which, again, that is almost some Dazai Chuya level of shipping, right? Where he's like, I'm not helping you, you're helping me. I'm the one using you. Like, come on. It's very funny. And Vanitas is like, Sure, yes, however you want to phrase it. He just laughs. He's like, whatever gets you through, man. Whatever you want to do. And I like Noy's so serious, and Vanitas is like, just sees right through it. He's like, okay, I'm helping you. Sure. Quite amusing. Quite amusing. I love how just serious Noy is. And he thinks back to that one vampire that says there's nothing you can do. And Noy's like, not this time. I'm not going to fail to save her. So yeah, he definitely has a chip on his shoulder of wanting to be the savior of the day. So, I also love the black and white coat combo. It's great. And then we meet Dante. Dante's fun. I like Dante. He has a little bat with the little message and stuff. It's so cute. Has the red hair. I like his eyes are pretty much red the whole time. Eating all the candies. It's great. I love that Dante is just like the informant. He's just an informant. And he's like, have you met my penultimate partner? Which suggests he's not the ultimate partner, which is really funny. But he's like, this guy's going to be with me forever. And Dante's like, you sure? Sure about that? This guy doesn't seem to like you. And so they decide to take him. They tell him to follow the bat and he'll take him to whoever the killer is. And I like that we see like the blood like boiling as Noy activates his vampire powers to be able to pick Vanitas up and just carry him anywhere. Because again, Vanitas is supposedly human, right? And then Johann shows up. Johann, this other vampire, just shows up being like, oh, I have something very special I wanted to tell you myself. Lord Ruthven's bureau is here in Paris. So Luca, is it Luca Ruthven? Is that what we're getting at? We have Luca, Master Luca Ruthven. And then we have the bureau, which is Jean. It said like Jean from Attack on Titan, but it also makes me think of Joan, like Joan of Arc, which is also the Hellfire Witch. I love it. The Hellfire Witch with the Crimson Gauntlet. I'm like, hell yes, it was Jean with the Crimson Gauntlet in the City of Flowers. It's like we're going to play a Vanitas Clue, right? We see Johann for like 2 seconds. I like Johann's character design. I kind of like Dante a little bit more at this point because he's got a little bit more personality, but we'll see about Johann. Johann has silver hair, so they're probably going to be interesting. And so Thomas, they say old Thomas B is the one they suspect is the curse bearer vampire that's been killing all the people and causing the ruckus. And Vanitas reveals that in episode 1, Amelia had contacted Vanitas to come and help. So he's the doctor she was talking about. So it was all kind of premeditated and connected from the start. Interesting. And so yeah, then we find out, we see this person getting like attacked by Thomas. And I just love that Noy just like throws Vanitas at like a missile at the vampire. And Vanitas is like, you could have killed me. Like, what are you doing? Chaos. And it was just a distraction so Noy could get him. I love it. It's great. And Vanitas, for all his chaos, is quite quick to forgive and busts out the Book of Vanitas to turn the Thomas guy back to normal, to suppress the curse, to paralyze him until they can take him to Orlok. And that's when Luca shows up, looking like a cross between Momiji from Fruits Basket and the Augustus Gloop from Willy Wonka. I don't know how else to describe him. And then has behind him Jean with the giant coffin with the gauntlet in it. It feels like a Seven Deadly Sins character, which I'm not a big fan of Seven Deadly Sins, but the character design just kind of looks a little bit about it. But I like the very weird shippy relationship between Jean and Luca, which granted, Luca's a vampire. Luca may look like they're 8, but actually be 200 years old. Jean seems much older, so can we judge them if they're shipped together? But I just find it very curious. I feel like it was necessary to show that Luca is a vampire to make it okay for those characters to be shipped. And I like that Vanitas is like, he goes up to him and goes, oh, give me the Book of Vanitas. And Vanitas says, no. Like, hell no, I'm not giving it to you. It's not a plaything for brats. I do also get the Gojo vibes from Vanitas in that he puts on this smile all the time. It's like, no! But there's probably something very deep and unsettling beneath him, and we just don't know it yet. Don't spoil me. Don't tell me if I'm right or wrong. Don't tell me what it is. We'll find out. But I get those vibes, right? And that's when Jean, like, he calls him a brat, and Jean's, like, releases the murderous aura, right? And they're like, this is an analytical engine in the form of a book. It is the infernal device that creates those known as curse bearers. And supposedly Luca's brother is the curse bearer that, you know, we're looking for. And so I like that Noi's like, you can't have the Book of Vanitas because my master told me to watch after it, but you can kill Vanitas himself. And Vanitas is like, thanks! Like, just the vibes between the two of them. He's like, I love these, like, you can't take the Book of Vanitas, yay! But you can kill Vanitas, boo! God, the contrast is absolutely hilarious. I love it. And they're like, we have to make haste. Sorry, we'll discuss this later. And that's when Lucas says, as a curse bearer, I must save them. And they're both like, what? Like, who put that nonsense in your head that the book curses people? I'm using the power of Vanitas to save them. And so Luca reveals that the brother suffers the curse. And he wants, I want you to take, for you to success that I take you to him is beyond ridiculous. And so that's when Venus is like, oh, okay, so this guy that we just knocked out may not be the main one we're looking for. And that's when Jean steps up. And, like, I love the idea of using the coffin case for the gauntlet as a weapon itself. That's just very creative. I like it. And, of course, Noe, for all his talk about, oh, you can kill Vanitas, he quickly removes him from the danger. Like, okay, Noe, sure thing. Sure, Jan, you're fooling nobody. And that's when the Crimson Gauntlets opened up. All right. I like the two of them just kind of look like, who is this that just threw a casket at me? What's going on? Master Luca, command me as you will. Monsieur Vanitas, will nothing convince you to give me the book? And Vanitas is like, no. And he's like, fine, Jean. I'll do my best to take him alive. Yep, and opens up the case. And then there's the Crimson. He's like, take the book from him using the Crimson Gauntlet. And I like Vanitas knows the lore, like knows everything about the Crimson Gauntlet, and is like, okay, audience. And she's like, she's Lord Ruthven's burrow. And he's like, who? I like, no, he doesn't even. He's like, you're a country bumpkin. Like, how do you not know the legends? It felt very Jack Sparrow from Pirates of the Caribbean. He's like, haven't you heard of the Curse of the Black Pearl? And he's like, as he's talking about the Crimson Gauntlet and running away. In the war long ago, 1,000 vampires sided with humanity, betraying their own kind. Oh, but a single burrow is said to have slain them all. Okay, so the burrows are not the vampires who betrayed, but the burrow was basically one who stopped the 1,000 vampires. Okay. So a single burrow is said to have slain them all, and that is the Hellfire Witch. Okay. The Crimson Gauntlet Carpe Diem. The bearer of a saintly name who slew her own kind. Yep, the Hellfire Witch Jean. Okay. He's like, haven't you heard the legends? And then luckily, Vanitas and them are much more fortunate than the 1,000 vampires that were, taken out. Although maybe Jean's lost her touch. Perhaps. And Noi's like, I'm not letting you die, but I love that the gauntlet, like, twists and turns. It has a very, like, Helsing vibe to it. I like it. And then, of course, I love that the released energy has, like, this pink magenta tone to it. And then Vanitas is like, man, we're in trouble. And he just air shoots him away. Like, does a big old air puff and gets him out of the way of the crossfire. I love it. That shot of the Hellfire Witch Jean, where the smoke clears and she like has the gauntlet, it felt very Rey from Neon Genesis. She has like this cold, emotionless face with like the short cropped hair. It works really good. And then of course Jean is like, you have to find a safe place to hide, and he's like, no, you must not slay him. You're no longer a burrow. You're my knight, my chevalier. Ah, he's like, we just want the book and him. Interesting. The Jean's like, oh, yeah, I am yours. I mean, I kind of ship it, I guess. Very interesting. They're just introduced and then shoved over here to the side. So meanwhile, we have Noi and them in the warehouse, and Noi has the big like gash on his shoulder and everything. I wondered for a second if Noi would like try to drink Vanitas' blood to like make himself gain his strength back, but it seems like attacking humans is a big no-no, especially Vanitas. Who knows what would happen? But whether it's Count Orlok or the city's vampires, they're all horrible listeners. They're not listening to what we're telling them. And Vanitas is like, yeah, all vampires have the fear of the vampire of the blue moon etched in their minds. Like that fear is driving them more than anything. He's like, that's just how it is. What the kid said is not entirely wrong. The Book of Aeneas can corrupt a vampire's true name. That much is true. A corrupted name causes a malnomen. My treatment consists of restoring the name to its true state. So just as the book can take the names away, he gives them back. So it is, again, how you apply it. It's a matter of application. It's no wonder vampires fear this book. So basically, if one version of Vanitas, if someone that is the Vanitas from the past was doing a lot of bad, then this version of Vanitas is trying to rectify that, right? So that's an interesting concept. So that makes me wonder how this Vanitas got their name, how they inherited the book. Maybe they're just trying to undo the wrongs of a previous Vanitas. We don't know. And he's like, the potential to do something and doing it are two different things. I mean, this is like, yes, that is very true. Even if the Book of Vanitas was created to exterminate vampires, it's an undeniable fact that you used it to save Mademoiselle Amelia. So it can't all be bad. What I saw that day was a resounding righteous act. I love how great, and I love that look that Vanitas gives him. He's like, you did good that day, and Vanitas is like, Vanitas gives him a look like, oh, you sweet summer child. Like, that's very much the look that Vanitas gives him in that moment, right? Where he's like, okay. And then Noi says, that's why I wish to return at once so that we can save her. And Vanitas just like laughs it off like, uh-huh. He's like, okay, sure. You're so stoic. Whatever. He's like, you're such an amusing fellow. And again, I feel like Vanitas is like, you wear your heart on your sleeve, Noi. And you're so genuine and honest. And maybe Vanitas is not that at all. He just hides behind the goofy laughter and the chaos. Indeed. What a dynamic between the two of them. He's like, fine, I've steeled myself, Noi. He's like, I don't know whether it'll work or not, but our only hope is for a swift return. I've found but one way. One way we can defeat the Hellfire Witch. I love it. I love the lighting. And Huckleberry's like, play with me. The lighting of both Vanitas' face and Jean's. It's great. And then we have the ED. Oh, what a great episode. Nice. We're getting lore. We're getting set up with Vanitas. We're getting mystery. We're getting Noi being adorable. And we're meeting new characters. And I'm enjoying it so far. So, lots of things to think about, eh? So, I'm very curious to know your thoughts down below. I really liked this episode. I thought it was great. I'm curious to see what their plans to stop the Hell Witch are. How they're going to stop her and get back to Olok. How that's all going to like come together. But I guess we'll find out next episode. So, in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yes, I will be back very soon with more case study of Vanitas. Bye.